Welcome, everybody. Okay, you can start. I think I've met most of you. My name's Debbie, and this is Beth. I'm currently a resident, again, at Abhayagiri, and Beth was a resident at Abhayagiri for 6 years until she had to go back to New Zealand. So the past 3 years, she's graced us with her presence, and she braved immigration to come and see us this time. So we have her for a month, and we like to try to come out here at least once, right? So we're kind of going to share whatever happens. It's not planned out. But I made her start last time we did this, so I have to start this time. I guess what's coming up with me the most is just after tea time, and we did some chanting this afternoon. We chanted 108 Itipi Sos, and I can still talk. It was very lovely. We did it out in the solar field, just a small group of us. Offered it towards various friends and people who have passed or people who are passing, world peace, a lot of different intentions behind the chanting. But we did it as a community, and community is what's resonating for me, especially after tea time and after my recent experience traveling, because most of you know when COVID started, I ended up going down to the Bay Area and spending most of my time in the Bay Area with my father. And then I was up at the monastery a week or 10 days a month. And he passed in February, so this year I haven't had that much time at the monastery because we had a lot of things to do down after he passed, before he passed, after he passed. I moved back to the monastery permanently at the end of August, and then at the end of July. I just turned 70, so you have to bear with me. At the end of July, I just moved back to the monastery, and then at the end of August, I went away. I went to one of our main monasteries in England, Amravati, and spent a month there. And then I went to Canada, in Ontario, and if any of you were here about a year ago, we had a monk visiting from that monastery, Tisarana Lumpur V. He's one of the elders in our tradition, one of the first Western disciples of Lumpur Cha. So I had opportunity to be visiting that monastery. And probably the thing that stood out the most for me in the whole experience was the sense of community, especially with the 5.5 years being with my dad, where I spent a lot of time alone with my dad. And I did have family around, and I did develop somewhat of a community, but what I really noticed is how much I really was craving that sense of support that you get in the community. And yes, the trials and tribulations as well. But I've learned so much through those trials and tribulations that I welcome them most of the time. And then Beth was a part of that community, so we have a very strong connection between us, and she was a saving grace. She was my community a lot of the time while I was with my dad because Zoom became such a big thing. And I had Wi-Fi, and so did she. So we used to talk frequently, and it was really easy for it to grow into 3 hours before we knew it. And that was even after they started limiting your free Zoom to 40 minutes. We figured out a way of getting back on really quickly by she'd call me and then I'd call her. But that kind of support and that sense of Kalyanamita, friends in the path, I find that and have found that so incredibly supportive and useful. Just in my own development, and then traveling in the world, finding people who are on the same path. They come from different cultural backgrounds, different languages, different parts of the world, and yet we share this commonality. So I really relished that opportunity to meet a lot of new people, made new friends, and some of them will be in touch. We'll keep in touch, and I'll see some of them. Some of them plan to come to Abhayagiri. So I truly value that. And I did get to see Lumpur Pisano. He's been in England for a year, and it was really wonderful to be back in his presence because I've lived with him in the same community with him for a long time. He's been my main Zen stick, keeping me growing. And even coming here and visit and being here in Three Jewels, for a while I was coming once a month, and then this year I haven't been able to do much of anything because we were resolving things in the Bay Area with my dad's estate. But yeah, just that sense of community and being together, even like on a Monday night in Three Jewels, being with other people who want to take the time to chant together, to sit quietly together, and just be together in this space that's provided. Okay, do you have anything to add to that?
Wow, firstly, it's wonderful to be here. This is a special place. I think it's a special place, full stop, but it's a special place for myself, for Debbie. We would come out when Medica was here and spend some time with her, and maybe she would take us somewhere to eat. I know Debbie would go, and they would go and sit at the harbour, sit in the car and look in the harbour when her health started to be a bit of a challenge for her. But I know also that she started to build this space, which I think is very beautiful. When the monks arrived at Abhayagiri in Redwood Valley, I think in 1997, and somewhere there's a picture. So when Abhayagiri began, there were two abbots, Lumpur Pisano and Ajahn Amaro, and there's a picture somewhere of one of them on one of the straw bales, stomping down the straw bale. So they were out here, and groups of people involved in creating this space. And then from that time, I understand, the monks would come regularly to offer teachings and to sort of bless this area for those who are interested with meditation and guidance. And and then just for me to come back to this life that I had here in the monastery, and alongside Debbie and alongside these two monks. I began, and my first time when I arrived was 2011, so it's quite a while ago. I had to leave in 2018, but it was that period in my life was a very, very special period of time, and for sure living in community. So there might have been, I don't know, maybe 11 monks at that time, and Debbie was the only other permanent resident, and then I became one as well. But this constant incoming of different guests and day visitors, and summertime, and there's often a building project happening. The time I was there, they began the building of the very large reception hall. Before that, all the operations came out of a tiny house, this very small kitchen, a tiny library, another little space, and a little bathroom. And they operated out of there for about 20 years, quite incredible. And then the foundations went down, forgetting the year, but over the time I was there,
for the reception hall, 2013. They started digging it.
So a 2,500 foot amazing space with a commercial kitchen and a huge Dhamma hall and a big library and all sorts of other facilities downstairs. So, but busy. It's a busy place, and having been more out as an ordinary lay practitioner prior to living in that community, and then spending a bit of time since I've left there in 2018 in 2 monasteries in New Zealand within the same tradition, but also time outside as a lay person. And what I see, one of the major differences is, you have a lot of choice as a lay person. Like I'm retired more now, so I can choose a lot about when I wake up, what I do, for how I spend the day, and who I spend it with. Particularly, you have a lot of choice about, except in your work environment, but often you have more choice. And in the monastery, some people may have been there, but from 5 o'clock in the morning until, which is when the puja begins, the morning puja, so chanting, meditation, until 8:30 when the evening puja ends, you don't have a lot of choice. You need to be very timely, and you need to be at the pujas at 5 in the morning, at 7. You need to be in the chore period at 6:30. You need to have your breakfast at 7. Work period begins with a little meeting at 7:30 and ends at 11:15. It's very structured. It's very much a routine that repeats and repeats. And if you're at tea time, we talked a little bit about the kitchen, but you might be popped in the kitchen with 4 people that you don't know, and you have to produce this meal out of a limited number of ingredients within a short period of time. And it can get a little tense. It can get a little stressful. You may find that you want to do it differently. You might be told this, or the person that you're alongside is irritating you, and you can't do what you might, or I might want to have done, like say, like give a snide remark, or or try and tell them that my way is better, or you have to sort of learn to, on your feet, drop a lot. And over a long period of time, what I see happens, it did for me, and I think it happens in that environment, your focus becomes other, because your potential to make a lot of choice within that environment is very, very small. And the whole ethos is to be there for the benefit, and engaging in body, speech and mind, acts of body, speech and mind that are of benefit for oneself but benefit for others. So it's a really different way to be, and to be hopefully bringing in the teachings of kindness and compassion and harmony and clarity and considered speech, and bringing all of that in. Sometimes when your buttons are being pushed really, really majorly. So when we talk about the benefits of community, yes, there is that nice feeling of coming and being part of the family, but there is the absolute opposite, when you just do not want, don't want to see that person ever again, but you're going to see them the next day and the next day, and you might see them for the next 5 years. So it's an incredibly rich and at times very challenging kind of training that you go through. And when I came out, I needed to go back to New Zealand because of the criteria for the state pension that I was unfortunate to receive. So I found myself back, firstly in Australia and in New Zealand, and then I saw what had kind of happened to me. And I'm not saying it was this amazing, incredible transformation, but different parts of the way I oriented myself were very different. For instance, in my ordinary, I firstly went out and I trained in hospital chaplaincy in a hospital in Melbourne in Australia. I'm a citizen of both Australia and New Zealand, which it's quite handy actually. But what I saw is that I didn't have that many opportunities to do something for someone else. And that's what my life had become. In the monastery, you get, your work is all about, I was in the office, I oriented female guests. I stopped the kitchen hotspot after a year and a half. I think I was allowed out of there. It's almost like you've done your time. But so yeah, I was like, I felt very disoriented in terms of, who do I serve now? Like, I wanted that other because it feels good. There's just so many positives of dropping a lot of that preferencing that we do. A lot of I want this and I don't want that, and I'm going to do this. Just needing to go along with the routine, but what was best for the community. And it's like after a while, it's like I'll just backtrack a little bit, but when the emphasis on in the Pali bhavana, which is often translated as meditation, but actually the translation is the cultivation of wholesome qualities, wholesome mind states, and it's a lot about the heart, about growing the heart, opening the heart, coming from more of a heart space than the mental sort of like chatter, which can be quite critical of self and other. And so in that environment where there's a lot of simplicity, and which is a nice translation, I think, for renunciation. You don't eat after midday, you don't have any access to the internet, you don't have any entertainment. Apart from the people coming in, you usually don't leave the monastery. So, you really are you're cutting off a lot of the normal ways that a lay person that's not wearing a robe may live. And then there is this very strong other focus. But there's also these amazing role models, like Debbie was an incredible role model for me. So she had been there since, well, she'd not known so much, but the monastery owes a lot for its existence to Debbie. She came back from Thailand in the 80s, having encountered the Dhamma in this Ajahn Chah tradition, both in Thailand and in England, and really wanted a monastery to be. So she and a few other people, since the 80s, have been engaged, and they're not so involved now. But Debbie's been there right from that time in the 80s, which is about 40 years very soon, dedicated to this. And I would see how she didn't think much about herself. She was just, somebody would arrive and she might have two things that she was doing, and she would drop that and she would go out and greet them. She would just do whatever it was needed to be done at the time, for these people, for an orientation, someone wanted to make a donation. And I'd see her kind of doing about 6 things at once, but always with this incredibly kind of warm, welcoming, sincere way of being. And I was way more selfish than that. I was in the office and I shut the door, keep these people away. And don't you see I've got something to do? And I just, over time, would, so often be inspired. But you also have, like Lumpur Pasano, our teacher, who's guiding elder, still usually on the property, but stepped down from being an abbot. Just sort of very, very wise being, and you get to be around and you see how this person behaves in many, many different situations, and in very different, you get guests are different, there's Q&As that happen, you have monks senior and other arriving from overseas, there's festivals that happen, there's quite a lot that goes on. So I just saw that what happens in those conditions is, I call it the heart informing the head. Like these wholesome states actually feel like they start to bubble up without, I could say now, okay, I want to develop gratitude, so I'll do A to Z every day. What am I grateful for that begins with A and da da da. But so that, for me, that would be the head trying to sort of encourage the heart. Whereas what I found happening there was these wholesome states are just bubbling up. I would just feel this amazing amount of gratitude from being in what I would call incredibly supportive conditions for the arising and maintaining of wholesome states, like gratitude and kindness and compassion and service and integrity, and because you need to be on 8 precepts. So when you live there, so that involves the no entertainment. This is like not killing, not stealing, not engaging in any, it's a celibacy there, but outside of the monastery, no sexual misconduct. Then right speech, so which is not lying, but it's also staying away from divisive speech, from conflictful speech, from gossip. So there's and then not indulging, having no intoxication, no entertainment, not eating after midday. So this sort of what you're kind of growing as you're doing it, even when you're challenged, is just a very wholesome way of living life day by day. And then you also have, it's incredible examples of Sangha who have much, much, much more in terms of those guiding rules that they are living by, and they, because each year usually there might be 2 men that come in as laymen. It's just a training place for male monastics, and over the time of living there, you see a couple of men come in from the lay life, and yes, they want to do this, and then they go into wearing white, which is the first year, and then if that works, then they go into being a trainee monk for a year, and then they go into the full ordination, and you see what they go through because you're alongside. In certain ways you're alongside. And then, because Ajahn Sudhiro here was the kitchen manager when I arrived in 2011, and that's a really full-on task, many, many challenges in that. And now he's a senior monk in our tradition, so you just, it is like being part of a family, but a family of very, very dedicated, people who have learnt to drop quite a lot of that reaction that we can have to many different conditions. So, I would quite like to be able to spend more time there, but coming back to the monastery and being alongside my dear friend and the bhikkhus who I have a lot of gratitude and appreciation for is a delight, and lay people also who have been engaged with the monastery either because they come up and visit all the time or they've been regular guests, and you just develop this enormous kind of a network of like-minded beings, which is it's a real treasure in this world where I feel for all kinds of reasons people are maybe a little more isolated than they were, or keep their distance from others than they did, or which I think is a very backward step. And New Zealand, when I grew up in it, was this tiny little country. It was like a big village, really. It didn't take long. You could be in the other end of the country. It didn't take long before you knew someone that knew someone that, It's very tiny and very, very benign, very peaceful place. It's changed now, but it's still a lot of good things going on there. So very grateful to be back, and I think this Three Jewels is a wonderful addition to the Abhayagiri family or the Ajahn Chah family of monasteries and centres. And we love coming out here. So thank you for being here.